All right, everyone. Today we're going to be doing Genesis chapter 31, giving you a behind the scenes. So first, I'm going to read chapter 31, and then we're going to get right into the nitty gritty of what chapter 31 is talking about. So let's begin, and I'm reading from the Amplified Bible. Verse 1. Jacob heard that Laban's sons were saying, Jacob has taken away everything that was our father's, and from what belonged to our father he has acquired all this wealth and honor. And Jacob noticed a change in the attitude of Laban and saw that it was not friendly toward him as before. The Lord said to Jacob, return to the land of your fathers and to your people, and I will be with you. So Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to his flock in the field. And he said to them, I see a change in your father's attitude, that he is not friendly toward me as he was before. But the God of my father Isaac has been with me. You know that I have served your father with all my strength. Yet your father has cheated me as often as possible and changed my wages 10 times. But God did not allow him to hurt me. If he said the speckled shall be your wages, then the entire flock gave birth to speckled, be it young. And if he said the streaked shall be your wages, then the entire flock gave birth to streaked, be it young. Verse 9, thus God has taken away the flocks of your father and given them to me. And it happened at the time when the flock conceived that I looked up and saw in a dream that the rams which mated with the female goats were streaked, be it speckled and spotted. And the angel of God said to me in the dream, Jacob, and he said, here I am. He said, look up and see all the rams which are mating with the flock are streaked, speckled, and spotted. For I have seen all that Laban has been doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed the pillar and where you made a vow to me. Now stand up, leave this land, and return to the land of your birth. And Rachel and Leah, in verse 14, answered him, is there still any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not counted by him as foreigners? For he sold us to you in marriage and has also entirely used up our purchase price. Surely all the riches which God has taken from our father are ours and our children's. Now then, whatever God has told you to do, do it. Verse 17, then Jacob stood and took action and put his children and his wives on camels. And he drove away all his livestock and took along all his property which he had acquired. The livestock he had obtained and accumulated in Padam Aram to go to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan. When Laban had gone to shear his crop, when Laban had gone to shear his sheep, my bad, Rachel went inside the house and stole her father's household gods. And Jacob deceived Laban, the Aramean, Syrian rather, by not telling him that he intended to leave, and he slipped away secretly. So he fled with everything he had and got up and crossed the river Euphrates and set his face toward the hill country of Gilead, east of the Jordan River. In verse 22, on the third day after his departure, Laban was told that Jacob had fled. So he took his relatives with him and pursued him for 7 days, and they overtook him in the hill country of Gilead. God came to Laban to the Aramean in a dream that at night and said to him, be careful that you do not speak to Jacob either good or bad. Verse 25, then Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent on the hill, and Laban with his relatives camped on the same hill of Gilead. Then Laban said to Jacob, "What do you mean by deceiving me and leaving without my knowledge and carrying off my daughters as if they were captives of the sword?" Verse 27, "Why did you run away secretly and deceive me and not tell me, so that otherwise I might have sent you away with joy and with songs, with music on the tambourine and lyre? And why did you not allow me to kiss my grandchildren and my daughters goodbye? Now you have done a foolish thing in behaving like this. It is in my power to harm you, but the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, 'Be careful not to speak to Jacob, either good or bad.'" Verse 30, "Now, I suppose you felt you must go because you were homesick for your father's house and family, but why did you steal my household gods?" And Jacob answered Laban, he said, "I left secretly because I was afraid, for I thought you would take your daughters away from me by force. The one with whom you find your gods shall not live in the presence of our relatives. Be it search, so search my possessions and point out whatever you find that belongs to you and take it." For Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen the idols. Verse 33, so Laban went into Jacob's tent and into Leah's tent and the tent of the two maids, but he did not find them. Then he came out of Leah's tent and entered Rachel's tent. Now, Rachel had taken the household items and put them in the camel's saddlebag and sat on them. And Laban searched through all her tent, but did not find them. So Rachel said to her father, "Do not be displeased, my lord, that I cannot rise before you, for the manner of woman is on me, and I am unwell." And that was just to give herself an excuse. He searched further, but did not find the household idols. Verse 36, then Jacob became angry and argued with Laban, and he said to Laban, "What is my fault? What is my sin that you pursued me like this? And although you have searched through all my possessions, what have you found of your household goods? Put it here before my relatives and your relatives so that they may decide who has done right between the two of us. These 20 years I have been with you, your ewes and your female goats have not lost their young, nor have I eaten the rams of your flocks." Verse 39, "I did not bring you the torn carcasses of the animals attacked by the predators. And I personally took the loss. You required of me to make good everything that was stolen, whether it occurred by day or night." In verse 40, "This was my situation. By day the heat consumed me, and by night cold, and I could not sleep. These 20 years I have been in your house. I served you 14 years for your two daughters, and 6 years, my share of your flocks, and you have changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the feared one of Isaac had not been with me, most certainly you would have sent me away now empty handed. God has seen my affliction and humiliation and the exhausting labor of my hands. So he rendered judgment and rebuked you last night." In verse 43, Laban answered Jacob. He said, "These women that that you married are my daughters. These children are my grandchildren. These flocks are from my flocks. And all that you see here is mine. But what can I do today to these my daughters or to their children to whom they have given birth? So come now, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let us serve as a witness before you and me." Verse 45. So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a memorial pillar. And it's the type of situation you can see on the side of a road, whereas if someone had an accident and perished, then people will set up, say, like a memorial. You may see flowers there, or a small cross. So same thing you see today applies. So in this situation, in verse 46, Jacob said to his relatives, "Gather stones." And they took stones and made a mound of stones, and they ate a ceremonial meal together there on the ground of stones. In Proverbs 16 and 7, where you can correlate that too. But in verse 47, it says, Laban called it, stay with me on this here, Jagar Sahudath, which is stone monument of testimony in Aramaic. But Jacob called it Galid. And Laban said, This mound of stones is a witness, a reminder of the oath taken today between you and me. And therefore, he also called the name Galid and Mizpah, which is watchtower. For Laban said, May the Lord watch between you and me when we are absent from one another. If you should mistreat or humiliate, oppress my daughters, or if you should take other wives beside my daughters, although no one is with us as a witness, see and remember, God is witness between you and me. Verse 51, Laban said to Jacob, Look at this mound of stones, and look at this pillar which I have set up between you and me. This mound is a witness, and this pillar is a witness, that I will not pass by this mound to harm you, and that you will not pass by this mound and this pillar to harm me. The God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Nahor, my father, and the God, be it the image of worship of their father Terah, an idolater, judge between us. But Jacob swore only by the one true God, the fear of his father Isaac. In verse 54, then Jacob offered a sacrifice to the Lord on the mountain and called his relatives to the meal. And they ate food and spent the night on the mountain. Early in the morning, Laban got up and kissed his grandchildren and his daughters goodbye and pronounced a blessing, asking God's favor on them. Then Laban left and returned home. Okay, so that concludes that a reading on Genesis chapter 31. So now let's get into the behind the scenes. Okay, so Genesis chapter 30. Oh, sorry about that. So Genesis chapter 1 records the dramatic departure of Jacob from his father-in-law Laban's household. And after 20 years of service, 14 for Leah and Rachel, and 6 for flocks, Jacob decides to leave Mesopotamia and return to Canaan. God tells him to return to his homeland, and Jacob takes his wives, children, and possessions secretly. And then Laban pursued him, leading to a tense confrontation. But ultimately, they make a covenant of peace. So, first of all, the significance of it is that God as deliverer and protector. Jacob had been mistreated and cheated by Laban of his wages 10 times. Yet God blessed Jacob and protected him. And this shows God's faithfulness even when people treat us unfairly. Then there's the call to return. God reminded Jacob of the promise given to Abraham and Isaac. His identity was not in Haran, but in the land of promise. And spiritually, it speaks of returning to where God intends us to be, even if it means leaving comfort zones that we're used to. Then there's family unity and decisions. Jacob explains his decision to Leah and Rachel, and both agree, acknowledging how their father had mistreated them. And it shows how important family unity is when following God's direction. And also, there has to be a confronting of the past. Jacob could not stay under Laban forever. He had to face his past, be it meaning Esau and Canaan. And this chapter sets the stage for reconciliation and wrestling with God in chapter 32. So there has to be covenant boundaries also. Laban and Jacob end with a covenant at Mizpah. It highlights the importance of setting boundaries when trust has been broken. So here are the insights. First of all, Jacob's fear and strategy. He left secretly because he feared Laban's manipulation, and this shows Jacob's continued tendency to rely on schemes instead of total faith. And though God was still guiding him, even though God was still guiding him. So, and that's how we are as a people, whereas we can have God's guidance, but we still want to manipulate things because we're thinking that God is moving too slow, or God is not moving in the direction that we want to go. But the thing is, we have to remember that it's about how God wants to go, how God wants to uh, maneuver through the choppy waters, so to speak. But many times we ourselves mess things up, or we ourselves delay the process because we want to do things the way we want and not God. Also, then we have to look at Rachel's her theft of the household gods. See, Rachel secretly steals Laban's household idols. Excuse me. and and this could have been about inheritance rights, and they were legal symbols of heirship in Mesopotamia, or lingering ties to old traditions. And it reveals that even within a covenant family, there can still be hidden compromises. In other words, don't be surprised when people are still going to be people, in the sense of messing up, in the sense of sinning, in the sense of being selfish or greed. Don't be surprised when people show who they are in certain situations, or show who they are when they don't think that people are watching them, or they don't think that they're being watched. But the thing is, God sees everything, God knows everything. So we have to be mindful of this. See, then we have God's intervention in Laban's dream. See, Laban might have harmed Jacob, but God appeared to him in a dream and warned him, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. And this behind the scenes detail shows how God protects his people even when enemies are plotting. So furthermore, this means that verse in Genesis 31 and 24 is a powerful glimpse into divine intervention and restraint. When God tells Laban, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad, he's issuing a total prohibition. I'm sorry, a total prohibition. Don't threaten, don't flatter, don't manipulate. Just leave Jacob alone. This is what God was telling him. And here's what's layered beneath that command, meaning of neither good nor bad. A Hebrew idiom, the phrase from good to bad, is a Semitic expression meaning don't interfere at all. It's not just about speech, it's about intent and influence. Because God is placing a boundary around Jacob. And Laban had the power and motive to confront or even harm Jacob, but God steps in to neutralize that threat. So, no negotiation or guilt tripping. Laban might have tried to guilt Jacob into returning or manipulate him emotionally, and God shut that down. And why does it matter? Well, God's sovereignty, even when Jacob is unaware, God is working behind the scenes to protect him. It's a reminder that divine protection isn't always loud, it can be quiet, strategic, and deeply personal. And sometimes God doesn't just fight battles, he prevents them from happening. So this verse shows how God can restrain even those who don't follow him, like Laban. In other words, um, just because they're enemies, God will use them also. God will use a rock if he has to get his mission accomplished. So so again, don't be surprised by that. See, many today use the Lord watch between me and thee in Genesis 31:49 as a blessing, but in context, it was actually a warning between two men who didn't trust each other. It was like saying, "God is watching you. Don't cross me," and that blessing actually came from suspicion and not friendship. So Jacob's story is full of trickery, fear, and family drama. Yet God still prospered him. And this behind the curtain look shows grace and work. Grace at work, I'm sorry. Shows grace at work. And God doesn't choose perfect people. And ain't that the truth? And because there are no perfect people. See, we can have the idea that there are perfect people, but I put it this way: God likes to choose those who you don't suspect. God likes to choose those who would totally take you by surprise. Uh, because when God chooses people who you would figure, it's kind of like when things come to fruition, that person is going to get the praise and glory, and people not going to look at God. But when God chooses someone who you don't expect, and it'd be total surprise. Remember, God is a jealous God, so He wants that glory. He wants that attention, and he richly deserves it also. Because who are we? What power do we have? If only through Him, if only by Him. So we have to keep that in mind. But he's going to use anyone, anyone, to have His um, promises fulfilled. So the takeaway in Genesis 31 is it reminds us that following God sometimes means leaving behind toxic environments, setting boundaries, and trusting Him to protect and provide. It also shows that God's covenant purposes march forward even when human motives and actions are mixed. So continue to renew your mind.